So the first thing that people want to know is the dispute, what the dispute is about. Some people even say we don't have a dispute. They call it an Anglo-Guatemalan dispute. So they say Anglo means British, so it's not about Belize. And they refer to our constitution, very clear what our boundaries is with Guatemala. Schedule 1 says the frontier of Belize with Guatemala is as prescribed in the Treaty of 1859, the 1859 Boundary Treaty. So that's our supreme law. We have to go by it, we have to abide by it, and we respect it. But then every country has their supreme law, and Guatemala have their supreme law that in 1945 included Belize as part of Guatemala. It said, that's where they started to say Belize is nuestro. And the constitution provided that their executive will make efforts to reincorporate Belize into Guatemala as their 23rd department. And that's when they started showing maps of Guatemala that included Belize. Now, over the years, they have changed their constitution, but their constitution still provides that Guatemala has rights over Belize. And those rights, they have changed the meaning of it in terms of every government has said, well, we claim the whole country. We want the Zaporedela keys. We want the Ranguana keys. Give me part of Toledo. In effect, they're saying we have rights over Belize, but I want to be a good neighbor. Give me a piece of Belize and we'll call it even. That's in effect their position. It confuses us. So in Belize, we say, but what is Belize the claim? The thing is, their constitution says they have rights over Belize, and we won't know exactly what they claim when we go to court until we go to court, if we get there. Yeah, because they have been changing it over time. Now, our view and our position is very clear. Our boundaries are defined clearly, just like the rest of the countries in the region. Guatemala's position is that Belize is a territory under dispute. Every now and then they put out their passports, they put out their driver's license, and we get angst in Belize. We get frightened when we say they include Belize, but it's an old thing that they've been doing from 1945. We have been trying to settle this thing over the years. From 1962, we started negotiating, mediating, conciliating, doing all kind of things that the books provide. And we had problems along the way too. We've had military threats starting in 1948 when they sent Her Majesty's Devonshire, one of them. And we had the British troops here. We had the defense guarantee even after independence, but that ended in 1994. Yeah, but along the way in the 70s, we had military threats too. And even today, we have problems with the military along the SARS too. And sometimes in the western border, like when they killed the young man Alvarado, President Morales said, we're going to send 3,000 troops to the border. Point is, we have tried from 1962 onward, 56 years of efforts trying other things. And what has been happening in the meantime? In the meantime, when we got independence, our population was much higher than our neighbor Petén. The country clearly bigger, Guatemala by far. They have 17 million people. We have 385,000. But even Petén, we had a bigger population in 1981 than them. But today Petén has a far bigger population than ours. That's how Petén looks in comparison to Belize. They have had a population explosion. They have more than doubled our population. And this is a conservative estimate because they have not done a census for the past 20 years. So the estimate for them is 809,000, but the estimate is that it's over 1 million. And then if we look at our comparison of population growth with Isabel and Petén. Petén is yellow, Isabel in the south is green, and Belize is red. So whereas we have been growing in population, they have been growing by leaps and bounds much more than us. And we know with population, they move where the greener pastures are. We have problems in the south too, and I don't need to deal with that. We have problem on the western border. We're all aware of it. We hear it on the news. But the thing is that people think that these things only happen when we hear them in the news. They happen every day. Every day these things happen. Every day these things happen. And the problem with it is that it is a cumulative effect that it has in the area, on us. $1 million business we deal with all of them. Illegal hunting, lumber, timber, gold extraction. These are multi-million-dollar um, businesses that they look like they're small things. And when they cut the tree, they cut a tree, 2 tree, 10 tree for the day. But over the time, it is accumulating into such a way that it is affecting the whole environment. So in 1975, it was all green. Peten was deep, thick, rich forest. Today, Peten hardly has any trees left. It's all pasture land. And this is a picture in 2007. Today, the problem has grown worse, 2018. And the deforestation is moving into our direction. It is creeping from the south and also from the west. So all of these things are happening, and we feel it every now and then when you hear it on Channel 5, Channel 7, Love, and so forth. But it's happening every day. Every day, it's a multi-million-dollar business. Now, people say, well, all we have to do is put law enforcement in the area, and government need to send more boots on the ground. And we have been doing it. Before 2008, before this administration came into power, there were three OPs out there. Since then, since 2008, we have had about 10 more. 2008, 2009, 11, 12, 15, 17, 18. Hunting key. All of those have been added. But that will not solve the problem. We know that problems between countries cannot be solved by military means. You can't send the troops and expect that the problem will be solved. So we've been doing that. Others say, well, we need international support. We need to internationalize the situation. We've been getting support from the OAS. We're getting support from the non-aligned movement, from the ACP, from Commonwealth, from CARICOM. All of those international supports, whenever foreign ministers meet, heads of government meet, they repeat their support for Belize's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and they now even call on Guatemala to work with us to come up with mechanisms of confidence building measures for the SARS too. So it's not that we're not doing those things, we are doing it. Maybe we could do more, I don't know, but we are doing those things. Some say let's get advisory opinions from the ICJ. Advisory opinions don't solve problems. We have examples of those. Western Sahara used it against Morocco when Spain was going to get out of Western Sahara as a colonizing power. Morocco said that territory is for us, so they can't get their independence because they belong to us. Western Sahara pushed the General Assembly to get an advisory opinion, and the advisory opinion of the ICJ was favorable to Western Sahara, saying they have a right to self-determination with their own territory. But Morocco, what they did is they walked into Western Sahara and took over more than half the country. So this yellow line here, this whole thing is supposed to be Western Sahara. They invaded that whole area, and this blue line that you see there is a fence made out of mines. It's a minefield. They just mine the whole area. The poor Western Sahara people can't just walk back and take their land, even if they wanted to. It's a minefield. Palestine did the same thing. They got the OAS to get an advisory opinion of the ICJ, and today they only have 12% control of the land that they originally had. So every day they're losing their land because of illegal settlements coming in from Israel. And then Israel follows it up with the troops. So now, what does the United Nations provide for the settlement of disputes? Because people say we need to go to the United Nations. Well, the United Nations provides a menu of options, what countries should do when they have disputes. And the menu of options include negotiation, inquiry, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, judicial settlement, resort to regional agencies. All of that we have done, except arbitration or judicial settlement. Those are legal, juridical routes to settle disputes. The rest, we've done it all. Some people say, well, let's take it to the Security Council. But the same chapter on the Pacific settlement of disputes says that the Security Council shall, when it deems necessary, call upon the parties to settle their disputes by such means. By what means? By the means that they have already defined here. So they more likely would ask us, have you gone to try your negotiations or mediation or conciliation? And we'll say, yes, we've tried that. Have you tried a juridical route? And we'll say, no, we've not tried that. And they likely tell us, well, you need to try that. Why will they tell us that? Because the same chapter of the United Nations Charter provides that in making recommendations, the Security Council should take into consideration that legal disputes should, as a general rule, be referred by the parties to the International Court of Justice, which is an organ. The judicial arm of the United Nations is the ICJ. So even the Security Council will have to bear that in mind. Now, people will say, well, why you drop this for us so late? If it was an option before, why didn't we consider it? The fact is that from the days when Guatemala started telling the British, you owe us because of Article 7, you were supposed to build a road for us and you didn't, so you have to pay us. The British tell them, let's go to court. As early as 1937, good Lord Halifax, the UK Foreign Secretary, wrote to them telling them that the only way we will solve this problem is if we go to court. And his letter is right there. It says, explaining why he thought that they should go to court. The issues in the present case are essentially of a legal character involving difficult questions of law and interpretation. And of all possible legal tribunals, the Hague Court, the same ICJ today, by reason of the authority of its judges and the length and nature of its experience, is, in the opinion of His Majesty's government, by far the most suitable to decide a question of this kind. But way back then, the Guatemalans were saying, no, 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 we won't go to court on the basis of international law. The British felt strongly that they have all the treaties, they have all the evidence, and the only way to solve it is to go to court. The Guatemalans felt that the way to solve it is if you haggle, you negotiate, you compromise. Guatemalans always sought a compromise solution, which meant that you have to give and take. You give them something and they give you something. But the British felt that we have nothing to negotiate. The land was ours, we have all the title for it. But the Guatemalans refused, and when the ICJ was formed as part of the United Nations in 1946, the first case that was going to court was this whole question of Guatemala's claim over Belize. The British tell them, let's go to court, and they wrote to the court saying, we submit to the compulsory jurisdiction of the ICJ. And Guatemala refused. And that refusal of Guatemala to go to court on the basis of law is what then led to all the other efforts that started in the 1960s to negotiate and so forth. Otherwise, the problem would have been solved a long time ago. So, why we would go to court? Right now, if we go to court, this is the composition of the ICJ. Some people say it's all pure old white men from Europe who are there. Actually, no. The president of the ICJ is a Somalian. And then it includes a judge from Jamaica, from India, Commonwealth countries. And it is representative. We have women too, from Uganda, from China, and so forth. So regions of the world nominate these judges, and we elect them. So we have a vote for every one of them. Over a period of time, every 3 years, they elect 3 judges. And they are elected for a period of 9 years. And they can be re-elected again. So we are very familiar with the court because they all have to come to us in order for us to check out their CVs and make sure that they are people of the highest standing, morally and also professionally. Now, what they look at? They look at the law and the evidence. It's not a court. People say when you go to court, the court could just compromise, find a solution, like take a Solomonic approach to things. Yeah, cut the baby in half, like those of us who read the Bible. You know, when the two mothers were fighting over the same baby. Well, the court cannot do that. They have to look at the law and the evidence. And what is the law? What is it that they will need to look at if we go to court? The special agreement that we signed with Guatemala provides that the parties request, that is Belize and Guatemala, request the court to determine, in accordance with the applicable rules of international law, as specified in Article 38(1) of the Statute of the Court. That means that any decision the court makes has to be based on Article 38(1) of the statute. Any claim that Guatemala brings has to be looked at under that 38(1). So they could bring any and all legal claims against Belize. And what does Article 38(1) of the Statute of the Court provide? It says that the court must decide in accordance with international law such disputes as are submitted to it and shall apply. It doesn't say may apply or can apply, should apply. Shall apply. They have no choice but to apply these things. Treaties, international customary law, general principles of law, judicial decisions. Now we go to court. The first thing that the court will want to know is Guatemala's claim. And they'll ask Guatemala, what is your position? Guatemala might say, well, I claim the whole country of Belize. Or they might say, give me half, man, I want to be good neighbors. Give me half and I'll call it even. Doesn't matter what Guatemala claims. What matters is what law and what the evidence they have to back up their claim. So even if they claim the whole country or parts of it, the court will first want to know whether Guatemala has any treaty to back up its position. So they'll ask Guatemala, you have any treaty to show that Belize is part of, or part of Belize is yours? And Guatemala will have to answer honestly, no, we don't have a treaty. And our position will be, well, we have the 1859 treaty. But not only that, are people afraid, no? They have this thing called litigation risk that they're talking about today. What if the court not recognize the 1859 treaty, or is saying, no, good, well, we have the 1931 exchange of notes too, which the Guatemalan government and Belize, British at the time, repeated again and confirmed the boundaries as marked by the boundary markers that the boundary commissioners put in place. So we have not one treaty, we have two treaties. And then even if the treaties fail, because people are afraid, we have international customary law as a backup. If people ask plan B, well, that's more than plan B, that's plan C, because you don't have two treaties. Customary law refer to historical possession, consolidation, and acquisitive prescription. The fact that the Spanish were here before, yes, we all concede that Spain was here, conquered the whole of the Americas. But after 1798, Spain never tried to exercise any control or authority over Belize. 10th of September 1798 is celebrated today because of its historical symbolism. It's symbolic of the fact that Spain never tried again to come to take over Belize. Whether it was a war, whether it was a battle, whether it was a little skirmish, even if no bullets were fired, it is symbolic for that purpose. Guatemala will be asked, can you show that you ever exercise administration, jurisdiction, or control over any part of Belize? And their honest answer will have to be no. We never exercised any of those in Belize. And the historical records are there. So Spain might have, but Spain abandoned these territories way before Guatemala became independent. So they don't have anything to back them up on that. Then you have general principles of international law. The more popular and famous one, important one for us, is the right to self-determination. The fact that we chose as a people to be Belizean, not to be British subjects, and neither to be Guatemalan. We decided we wanted to be Belizean, independent and free, with our independence within our territory. And we have the support of the whole United Nations for that. So there can be no question of our right to self-determination within our territory. And finally, judicial decisions. Courts are guided also by precedents. They will have to look at decisions that they have taken in the past. And the court, since 1946, have looked at 32 boundary and territorial disputes. They have looked at many other disputes, but in terms of boundary and territorial one, 32 of them. And among all of them, there has been one consistent position that they have maintained, and that is stability of boundaries is of primordial importance in our international system. You cannot change a boundary any way you want. You cannot redraw the map any way you want. A boundary once established takes on a permanence that is held even if you don't have the treaty anymore. You could tear up the treaty, the boundary remains because it has to be permanent. Yeah. Now, that is the law. What is the evidence? We have the 1859 treaty that some people think no exists or no good. We have the originals. The British were good record keepers. We have the originals done in English and Spanish with the original seals and all of that. Charles de Octroy for British and Pedro Ichinena for the Guatemalans. We have the original copies of the ratification documents. We have all of that. And we have the border monuments at these spaces where the Guatemalans participated in placing border markers in these areas. at Gracias a Dios and Garbots Falls in 1961 and in 1931. And then the Aguas Turbias ones was put there by the Guatemalans and the Mexicans, not even by the British. So the Guatemalans participated in the placement of 3 principal Buddha monuments. And it would be very strange if they go to the court and say, well, I didn't mean to put it there. But they are there because we can see them. We have the original map that was prepared by the boundary commissioners in 1861. That they went out there and drew on it, and they signed it. Signed by Henry Ray, Captain Royal Engineer and Major Boundary Commissioner, and Manuel Cano Madrazo, Teniente Coronel y Comisionado for Guatemala on the 13th of May, 1861. And what did they certify? They said, we certify that the boundary lines shown in this map are correct. And they drew exactly where they put their, where they surveyed and where they put their boundary pillars. At the time, they did not survey the entire thing. They surveyed a part of it. This is Garbots Falls here. And then they put in the south. In the south, they put Gracias a Dios branch. And an important thing for us today is the mouth of the Sarsoon River. They went out there and they had to decide where does the mid-channel of the river pass. And they both agreed that the mid-channel of the river is south of the Sarsoon Island. And they drew a solid line showing that they surveyed it. And they marked it with a pen saying and showing the island north of the mid-channel. So we have that evidence to support us. Guatemala likes to pretend that these things don't exist. Or maybe they tear it up, it doesn't matter, but we have the originals. Right there at in the archives in the London. And we have the boundary markers that they've put in place. They can't say it doesn't exist, it's there. This is in the Garbots Falls, the Macal River behind that, Barbenque. And then Aguas Turbias, down south by the Sarstone. The important part of this is not just the monument itself. The gentleman to the back there with me is the ex-foreign minister of Guatemala. So they know it's there. But he couldn't go back to his country and say, I visited the boundary monument. Because in Guatemala it is illegal to refer to any boundary with beliefs. According to them, under their law, there is no such thing as a boundary. Yeah, but it's there. They placed it. At the top it has Guatemala written on it and British Honduras. And the point in the middle is where the boundary passes north to south, making on one side Guatemala, on the other side Belize. We have the original 1931 exchange of notes. And then what do courts say? This is just sample. The court has looked at many boundary and territorial disputes, but Guatemala's position is based on historic title. They inherited this land from Spain, they say. But in a Indonesia-Malaysia case, in respect of historic title, the court has pronounced itself on it. It says, modern international law does not recognize the survival of a right of sovereignty based solely on historic title. Not in any event after an exercise of self-determination conducted in accordance with the requisites of international law, the bona fides of which has received international recognition by political organs of the United Nations. That sounds like us, you know? Against this, historic claims on feudal pre-colonial titles are mere relics of another international legal era, one that ended with the setting of the sun on the age of the colonial imperium. Yeah. Some poetic and all, they feel so strongly about this. It's not the only time they've said it. Yeah. In effect, they're saying, Guatemala, not come with your thing that you inherited this place from. It won't work in our court. It might have worked one time, it won't work today. Not under the United Nations system that we live by today. And then in Libya, Chad, a case very similar to us with Guatemala. The conclusion of that was once agreed, the boundary stands, for any other approach would vitiate the fundamental principle of stability of boundaries, the importance of which has repeatedly been emphasized by the court. And it gives you other examples where the court has said the same thing. It continues here that a boundary established by treaty thus achieves a permanence which the treaty itself does not necessarily enjoy. The treaty can cease to be enforced without in any way affecting the continuance of the boundary. When a boundary has been the subject of agreement, the continued existence of that boundary is not dependent upon the continuing life of the treaty under which the boundary is agreed. I don't think it could be any clearer than that. So, in effect, Guatemala could declare the 1859 treaty null and void. They could tear it up, no matter. The boundary stands. That is what the court has said repeatedly, not one time, many times. So what we expect if we go to court is that the court will declare the rights of Belize. The question says the court has to determine the boundary and declare the rights. Declare the rights because we have different levels of rights on our land and our seas. And even though under the Maritime Areas Act, we have declared our maritime areas, our spaces, we have 10 miles of territorial sea, we have 200 miles of exclusive economic zone. We have declared them, but we have not delimited them with any neighbor in the sea. So with Guatemala, the court would be asked to delimit for the first time our boundaries in the sea. We expect that the court will confirm the boundaries on the land, but on the sea they will have to delimit it because it has never been done. The Maritime Areas Act did not delimit it; it just declared what our rights are. So in effect, in the special agreement, what we have agreed with Guatemala is that Guatemala's claim must be based on legal arguments. They cannot just say, well, I had a friend with Trump, so please bear that in mind. Now, that won't count. Or I had a friend with Israel, and I just put up my embassy in Israel, so consider that only. But the court cannot do that. It has to be based on legal positions. Guatemala will have one chance to make all the claims it has on land, islands, and sea over Belize. And why is that? Because we don't want a case to develop that, let's say they say, and claim half the country. After the court rule, more likely in our favor, then some other government in Guatemala will say, yeah, but the previous government forget to claim the next half, or they forget to claim some islands. Point is, we want this to be the determinative settlement of the problem. So the ICJ will be asked to examine the law and the evidence to determine whose position is right and whose position is wrong when it comes to under international law. We expect that the court will confirm our position based on the law and the evidence. And then, after this, there will be no claim. The whole point of the matter is to settle it once and for all, finally. Now, what is Guatemala's position? I have a short video, I don't know if you know. It doesn't take too long. But when we signed the special agreement, you had Belize media houses in Washington. You had Channel 5 and Amandala at the time, who interviewed the foreign minister, Bert Rosenthal. Before he was foreign minister, he was executive director of ECLAC, Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. Very well respected gentleman. He was asked, why not just drop the claim, and what you think will happen if we go to court?
Why not just drop the claim?
Well, if we could, we probably would. The problem is the Constitution.
But the Constitution can be changed.
It's very difficult to change the Constitution, and it's also difficult to change attitudes.
And from Rosenthal's senior vantage point, his country doesn't have much of a chance.
Do you feel that you will win the case as opposed to the ICJ? You have seen the evidence.
I'm not a lawyer, but I think most lawyers will tell you, to be frank, that no, Guatemala will not win the case.
Not any part of it, because it involves the land, it involves the sea.
It's one of these things that all or nothing, and it'll probably be nothing.
Gert Rosenthal knows that all too well.
When I went to school, I was taught that Belize is Guatemala.
But now, Rosenthal, one of the most senior and well-respected diplomats in Guatemala, sees it differently. He says this agreement is the only hope for neighbors to live in productive peace.
It's the only solution, actually, to end this conflict for us. The only way to get off the hook, because Guatemala has no imperial pretensions, is for a juridical solution who will rule whatever the legal situation is. That gets Guatemala off the hook in terms of ending this 150-year-old dispute. I wouldn't say it's urgent because 150 years have elapsed. I wish we would have solved this many years ago.
Well, you heard what he said. The only thing we disagree with And some people out there say we could wait another 150 years, but we know the effect that is taking place and that is happening along the border. The headaches we get every day, not every once in a while, every day. And the effects, like I said, are cumulative. Now, we are in a position where Guatemala has finally agreed to go to court. Something we had been pushing from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and they refused. And they have agreed to accept the decision of the court as final and binding and to comply with the decision of the court. The special agreement also provides that 3 months after the court's ruling, a demarcation commission, a boundary commission will be set up in order to mark the entire length of the boundary line, including the sea. Something that has never been done jointly. So Guatemala has agreed to that. And it also provides, the agreement provides that if for any reason Guatemala refuses to cooperate, then the Secretary General of the OAS is empowered to appoint the term, to give the terms of reference to the boundary commissioners for the demarcation to continue. So those things are in place. And also they say, well, what if it now happens? Well, then we have the Security Council, and then Article 94 of the Security Council provides that the Security Council is charged with giving effect to decisions of the ICJ. So that would be the time to then go to the ICJ and say, come into the Security Council and tell them, please now make sure this thing is respected. So, our options that we have in Belize, we have some people who say, just ignore the claim. Some of the people who are out there campaigning for the no, they say, just ignore the claim. Not our problem. It's a British problem, and with Guatemala, it's an Anglo-Guatemalan dispute. That means British, that no means Belize. More negotiations. They say, let's continue negotiating. That is another option people are promoting out there. Some say, let's try other ways. Send more BDF to the border. Let's get an advisory opinion. Let's internationalize this thing. Or we could go to court. Those are the options we have today. And in 10 April 2019, Belizeans will be asked to decide. And it's important that they make the right decision. I think history shows that the decision Guatemala took in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s to not go to court is what led us to many years of headaches. Now the decision is ours because they have said yes. And what will we do as a country? The decision is for all of us. Thank you, sir.